It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday we are talking about, we're talking about the men's fear of disappointing women and how that becomes certainty. And then dealing with disappointment themselves. It's a whole disappointment, being disappointed, disappointing other people, and how it sort of spirals into the world. Whenever you catch yourself saying the world, I stop myself when I catch myself doing that, because especially when it comes to something like gender and gender constructs, the world has no consensus, right? For instance, the idea of an ideal man in, say, Japanese culture is not the same as an ideal man in Western culture. And God, the concept of an ideal man these days is not even the same in, Canada versus America, and then different parts of America. Like, we can't even say America is all one thing. And the world doesn't agree on what the Gulf of Mexico is called anymore. How can we say the world on everything? But we do it all the time when it comes to masculinity and femininity, right? That is because there is really deep pain associated with feeling like we're disappointing people, feeling like we're not living up to expectations, feeling like we're not doing our duty in our given social role. And so many of these roles are unspoken. We didn't consent to them. We didn't agree to them. There is some fucked up social contract theory going on that just by being born in a society, you somehow opt into the rules of that society. And no, I mean, okay, law's fine, but there's all these things on top of that, all these undeclared expectations, all these unwritten rules. And if a rule's not written, it's not a rule. So what is it? It's an expectation. And we start in life getting our primary expectations from our parents, right? Our parents have expectations of us. Teachers have expectations of us. And those expectations, because they are our world as children, become the world as adults, even though it's not. Even though objectively, rationally, you know that there are different pockets of people that believe different things, right? And ironically, you can claim that like radical feminist groups and red pill groups, like they have nothing in common, you'd think, except the underlying assumption that both these groups have is that the world hates their gender. The world hates, all men but the Chads for the red pill or whatever they're calling them now. I don't know the alpha male, sigma male, whatever. And then with feminists, radical feminists, no matter how many advancements happen, oh no, the world still just wants to kill women. They want us dead. They want us dead thing is okay. Let's get into expectations, right? Because we are given unwritten gendered expectations as children. And they didn't take with me. Or maybe they did. I'll explain them. There are men that pass the masculinity test, right? And then there are women that pass the femininity test. Those people matter. Those people are rewarded by society. Those are what we refer to the 9s and 10s, right? Everybody else, you fucked. And this is a stupid social system, but we all know it's true. So this idea that the world protects women, the world does not protect women. The world protects that minority of women who've passed the feminine benchmark. And there's a very famous speech called Ain't I a Woman by a woman named Sojourner Truth. And this speech was lost until Gloria Steinem and a certain wing of second wave feminism actually brought it back, because what it was speaking to was that femininity, that protected femininity, didn't exist for Black women in the US, right? It doesn't exist for a lot of Latino women. It doesn't exist for a lot of Asian women. Like, it doesn't exist for the majority of women. Only the women who are woman enough. Similarly, patriarchy really only benefits the men who are men enough. The patriarchs. It's not the menanarchy. It's the patriarchy, meaning only that top tier gets the benefits. And instead of recognizing that we live in a system that is shit for the vast majority of people, the men's groups go after women and the women's groups go after men. And then you get the not like those other men's groups that say, oh, we're here to protect and support men. And then whenever certain verboten topics come up, they shut it all down. And so there's this sense that even in safe spaces, you're not safe, because in all men's spaces, that hierarchy exists. And there's also the reality that our attitudes towards men and women are set primarily by our parents. And a lot of boys, and then the girls that aren't girls enough and are defined not girl enough in childhood, they're taught that they have to protect and please their mothers way too young. And so because they have to protect and please their mothers, this sets the relationship with all the other women in their life. Now, there are exceptions. There are certain subcultures where boys are just put up on such a pedestal. And I know guys who are like, oh, that never happens. No, it does. There are friends of mine who have sons and they have a real parenting challenge because their older relatives are, oh, he's a boy and he's around. So they spoil them rotten because, I mean, these are socioeconomic brackets where, you know, a lot of kids raised by single moms. And so those groups sort of dote on boys and spoil them in the traditional sense of they don't teach them earning things. They teach them, oh, your virtue is innate. Your value is innate. And this is the problem with the protection thing. The guys out there who go, oh, society protects women and therefore favors women. It's not quite how it works. Because when someone is raised protected, that's also sheltered. You're never given a chance to fail and go back and try again and do it again. You're given this belief that you are innately good or innately bad, and who gets to determine that? The authority figures in your life. And at some point, you have to decide, no, they don't get to choose for me whether I think I'm good enough. I get to choose for me whether my actions and efforts are good enough. And in order to get there, you need to be able to assess your own behavior. And you need to feel your feelings to assess your behavior. Have I done the help support this channel? I don't think I have. I got right into this. I'll do it now. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. If you like this content, please, Great comments are awesome. I love them. If you can give financial support, I'd greatly appreciate it. But because men and bad girls, or not girl enough girls, are taught your job is to protect and please your mother. Look after your mother. Look after your sister. I mean, that was my upbringing. My sister was the proper girl. She was the great hope for the continuation of my family. And my role within the family was to keep her safe and keep her happy and help her and give her what she needed. Does that fuck you up? Absolutely. That's my window into how boys are raised. Because that leaves you with the sense, well, she counts, you don't. Why? Well, you girl wrong. And similarly, I think there probably are, like, you know, some people who are raised as this golden child, as sons. And then everybody else is, no, he's the one that matters. But then there are those families that the look after your mother thing happens. And this is a real problem. Parentification is a real problem. It is unfair to tell an 8-year-old that he is not only responsible for the physical safety of his adult parent, but also that he is responsible for her happiness. Anybody who was raised by a mother that you weren't allowed to be angry at, you know this feel, right? That defines, and this theory is not mine. This theory comes from Avram Weiss. Link in the description box below. I've had Avram on It's Not Therapy. He has done research talking to thousands of men, doing questionnaires and whatnot. So for those who say there isn't research done on men, please check out Avram Weiss. But his whole theory is that because men are taught as boys that their role is to protect and please their mother, they get a sense of self that their role is to protect and please women, and that comes out in their partners. Apparently, the single biggest fear, I'm reading from this article, the single biggest fear expressed in a survey of 5,000 men was that they would not be able to make their partner happy. In fact, 8 of men's top 10 worries have to do with not being good enough for their partners or families. And that leads to a fear of, so not just a worry, but a fear of disappointing partners and families. And that circles around with this idea that men's needs don't matter. And it starts coming from parents, right? So it is external. And when you're a kid, your parents are your world, right? Men did not just create this on their own. But after a while, you're an adult and you get to make choices. And that's the thing that is very, very scary. Because making choices, yeah, it disappoints people. And when your primary fear is disappointing the women in your life, it can be very easy to believe that that fear is coming from the women in your life or the world, in that when you were a kid, the world was your parents' thing. But this is where our rational brains have to do some work for us, right? Because the world doesn't agree on anything, you know? The world doesn't agree on what we call the Gulf of Mexico right now. I think I already said that. If the primary thing that determines your happiness or unhappiness is having a female partner and her being happy, this is a very low possibility of happiness, because a lot of women aren't happy. And that's because they are the vast majority of women who were taught that you're either one of the girls that count or one of the ones that don't. And if you're not girl enough, you're going to be punished for the rest of your life. And your husband or your boyfriend will leave you the minute an actual proper girl looks at him and will tolerate his presence. That is what women are trained. And guys are like, that's not true. Right. So if that's not true, why are you so sure that this messaging that the world sends men is in fact the world and is in fact true? For the same reason that women believe it's true, right? Because it was ingrained as a child and we're terrified that it's true. We are afraid of it. And when it's a fear of disappointment, and I've talked before about how I had to deal with disappointment and not knowing how to feel it because I wasn't allowed to be disappointed because, had to keep mom happy, among other things. And you were never allowed to be angry at, me sainted ma. All the things she did for you, all that stuff, you're never allowed to be disappointed. That eats you from the inside. When you are put in a position of responsibility when you're a child of looking after an adult, but you don't get any of the privileges that usually come with that responsibility, which means being able to set some fucking rules, right? That creates a very low self-image. And it happened so young. It's really hard to pinpoint where it came from. And this is complex because most people love their parents. And so this is very like loving somebody who's connected to disappointment. And then this sense of, well, if I'm disappointed, I'm not grateful. Well, that's not true, right? I can be disappointed with the way certain things went. I can be disappointed that my sister was the good one and not go, well, this charts the entire course of my life. Because you are going to disappoint people. You are going to be disappointed. And if you have buried that fear so deep that it has become a certainty that the world is against you, that the world hates men, and it's impossible odds, but you have to beat them anyway, that's a recipe for unhappiness, right? The world doesn't think anything. One, the world doesn't think. Two, there's a lot of diverse opinions in the world, right? Again. And one of the things this manifests in is that men being hypersensitive to things sounding critical when it comes from women. And this is not true just of men. This is true of anyone who felt responsible for their mothers as a child. If there's these mommy issues at the core of it, anything, certain things that are not criticism, that are not rejection, that are not dismissal, land that way because what it was it wasn't open praise. It wasn't, oh, you've made me so happy, and because you think that's your responsibility, well, now it's criticism, right? Something was an issue for them. And the example the article gives is that, a husband wanted to do something and the wife went, well, it's not my favorite thing, but it's okay. And the husband couldn't take the win. No, you have to be happy about it. And she was never going to be happy about it. She was like, not my preference, but yeah, okay. She was trying to be accommodating, but it wasn't good enough for him because he thinks his responsibility is to protect, provide, and please. Now, this is when some guys get really defensive and says, what's wrong with wanting protect, provide, and please? Nothing inherently. As long as it's not one-sided. If the relationship goals you have is that you protect, provide, and please certain things for your partner also protects, provides, and pleases for you sometimes, that's cool. Sometimes. You can care about the other person's emotions. You are not responsible for them. Even if somebody said you were when you were 8 years old. Often that does not happen because proper girls are socialized to be protected. The idea that they would protect a man is wrong because they're taught it's emasculating. And I disagree. But that's why a lot of women, manipulatively throw their partners under the bus and don't see anything wrong with it. They don't even see it as throwing their partner under the bus. Like, this was he won't like that. Like, did you ask him? No, you're speaking for him. And a lot of the times it's, no, they don't like, she doesn't like it. And she's just saying he doesn't like it because he's not there to defend himself. And men are allowed to not like things, right? It's interesting to me that somebody said to me recently, well, women are allowed to complain. Women are allowed to complain and men aren't. And I think a lot of women, married women, are like, are you kidding me? He's constantly complaining. And the definition of criticism, the definition of a complaint is gendered, right? Because for a woman going, I don't like it, but okay, that was the way their mother told them it's okay to go out with your friends. Well, I don't really like their parents, but okay, as long as you're back by 10, right? That is the closest thing to approval some people get from their mothers. So women repeat that and then get very confused why it landed as criticism with men. Similarly, the masculine grouchiness that men are trained to be tough, like, oh, it's tough. Women hear that as complaining. And there's no right or wrong there, right? Like, that I use the whole thing of Wolverine, like, drinking himself stupid and picking fights because he can't express his feelings. And to men, that's seen as noble suffering. And what that does is attracts, I can fix him chicks. And you can't. And, there are a couple guys I work with now who are starting to realize their own I can fix her tendencies in themselves. And that's good. Because again, you can care about someone's feelings. You're not responsible for them. Because that fear of disappointing people, and the rational part of your brain knows, right, that you're going to disappoint other people sometimes. It's unavoidable. And because that is such a terrifying idea, not trying can seem smart. But if you admit that it's irrational, right? But the fear is so strong that that's when the narrative building starts, right? That's when the world hates men. The world protects women but doesn't protect men. The world does protect some men. That is patriarchy. The patriarchs get protected by systems, by money, by, really rich guys hire private security, everybody else, well, you're fucked. But it's the same for women. Certain women are protected. Certain other women, you lazy, right? The whole welfare queen stereotype. So, and a lot of guys will reject that straight out. They need to believe that women are protected and men aren't. Because they weren't protected as kids. And it is very difficult. When you are abused as a boy and your mother tells you it's because you're a boy, you believe that. But that's not the world telling you that. That's your mother telling you that, and your father not being willing to defy her because she's emotionally abusing him too, right? That's the thing. Proper women, they never have to question the idea that, oh, there are just good girls and not good girls, and there are properly feminine girls, and those are the good ones, and nothing bad is ever going to happen to them because they're properly feminine. And if something bad happens to them, well, that's wrong. But anything bad happens to one of those not feminine girls, well, that's fair. They're bad, right? And when there's no accountability, when there's no, like, a properly feminine girl never disappoints anyone. At least they won't tell her that. They may not even dare think it, right? Because then she'll cry. And it's your responsibility to stop her from crying. It's not. Your responsibility is to your own behavior. So if you made a mistake, own it. If something came out the wrong way, say so. Apologize if you actually are sorry for hurting the person, But being responsible for your actions that led to the hurt feelings and being responsible for someone else's feelings it may seem like a distinction without a difference, but it's not, right? Because certain people, and often they are the proper women, that's the only direct influence a properly feminine woman has. Emotional blackmail. Because you can never be overt, right? You can never go, I really want this. How do we make that happen? Oh no, that's selfish. Oh no, women can't be selfish. So it's constant mind reading. And the fact that no one is allowed to upset the properly feminine girl, that's where the power is. Now, if you want that, go ahead, maintain your traditional feminine ideals, right? Go out and get yourself that proper lady. But you will be stuck one-sidedly protecting, providing, and pleasing. And people, well, women please their men too, but it is different, right? If a man gets angry and yells at a trad wife, then it's, oh, you're frightening me. But if the roles are reversed, well, he must have deserved it. Because, oh, this poor little thing, this poor wee lamb wouldn't just get angry for no reason or to be a bully. Look at her. She's so frail, right? You can choose to opt out of that. And men are like, yeah, that's why I don't date. Guys, there's an in-between state there, right? Not every woman wants you to be a provider. And that doesn't mean you're not useful. It is different. Like I said, if you're providing certain things for a relationship and they're providing other things for the relationship, that's healthy. If you are the provider, that is less so because you have needs as well. And those needs are a discussion and an agreement and a negotiation in healthy relationships, right? The protecting, similarly, everyone has feelings, and those feelings deserve to be respected. And in some cases, protected, even men's, right? If somebody's had a really rough day and you know it, doing your typical, you never help. Not the day. No day is the you never help day, but that's a topic for another time, right? Everybody deserves compassion and empathy towards their feelings. Now, are you protecting, that their self-image, their self, are you being kind and compassionate and caring? Or are you trying to save them from themselves? And that's what a lot of people start doing when they feel they need to protect. Oh, don't tell her this. It'll only upset her. Oh, don't tell her. I don't want her to worry. Well, maybe it's something to worry about. And why are you shouldering this all on your own? Isn't she an adult? Well, if you're providing and protecting, that sounds more like a child than an adult, doesn't it? But how do you know the difference? You were given adult responsibilities when you were 8. You see how it goes around? And then the pleasing thing, it's great when you do something that makes someone happy, right? That's great. That's awesome. Those are good days. I had to remind myself of that last week because, my birthday was Saturday. And so, I got Choo Choo Charles. And Eileen gave me an angry opossum picture. It was great. And, stuff like that. I won't go through everything. But I was actually so stunned and sort of humbled that somebody understood I'd really, really like a Giga Spider Demon Train, right? I feel seen. I feel heard. Possums. Yeah. That I actually, say thank you, Leanna. Show you like it, right? Because of that inner thing of, if you like something, people will take it from you. People will shit on it and say it's crap. And so because I realized, they got me this wanting me to be happy. So if I'm happy, which I was, show that I'm happy. Right? It seems so simple. But when we're in constant protect and provider mode, that gets lost. Hi, Midna. That's Midna. People ask who it's in the background. That's Midna. And that's the thing. Your spouse wants to see you happy too. She does. No, really, she does. And if you're doing that fear of disappointment, it gets so overwhelming because it's a certainty you're going to disappoint someone. And if you retreat from the fear, it gets so big that that's when you start going, well, the world hates men. Some people do, legit. There are misandrists out there. Some of them are other men. But the world is not in agreement on anything. And if you are centering the people that you believe hate you, that's a choice you're making, If you instead focus on people that give you cool Giga Spider Demon Trains, well, that's a very different calculus, right? It's a very different equation. It's like, I'm going to work on putting my energy into people I can please instead of finding, copies of my mother that I will continue to disappoint, right? Because my mother was never happy. And your mother not being happy was not about you. Your mother being abusive was not about you. You were a child, okay? But when you had to act like a 25-year-old when you were a kid, your memory is not of you as a kid. Listen, it's not therapy this week about this, please. But your memory of that is not as you as a kid. You're back there as an adult. Time has just flattened. And since time has flattened, you're still back there with a mother that you can never make happy. Or, you had to walk her on eggshells. She was really easy to upset. Trust me, as somebody who had to work through this, you are seeing that you're seeing that everywhere. You are seeing that in everything. And I come up against this with people who just have a very strong reaction to something that did not have the intents they claimed from me. And it sucks to be on the receiving end of someone's mommy issues. But it's really common. Thing is, if you actually want people to tell you the truth about things, they have to be able to tell you when they're not thrilled with something, as well as when they're happy. Because if they're never allowed to tell you that they're not happy, how can you trust when they say they are? No has to be valid for yes to count, right? And that, I mean, as somebody who came up very, like, just don't say anything one way or the other so that somebody doesn't take it the wrong way, you're missing out on a lot of positives by living life primarily avoiding the negatives, right? And it's hard. I'm not saying just go out there and face your fear. Nah, that's bullshit. Reassess your expectations and recognize that the world is not setting an expectation on you. The people around you are, and you're setting expectations on yourself, right? You're allowed to go, I think what I'm doing right now is good enough. The haters out there may not agree. God, if I set my sense of self by my biggest critics, holy shit, right? Like, it's not that you tune them out. It's not that you don't let them get to you. They will frustrate you, but they can't define you. And as an adult, your parents don't get to tell you who you are anymore. And no, you were never responsible for your mother. You're responsible for your behavior. You're not responsible for making a partner feel anything. Both adults in a relationship are responsible for providing. Both adults in a relationship are responsible for protecting without infantilizing the other person. But that's a topic for another time. Interested in your comments on this. Again, TLDR, whenever you're like, the world hates men, the world protects women, stop and find a way to say that isn't the world, because the world does not have a single opinion on anything. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Your support is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching. Manly Mondays.